Okay, so we are in week 15, session 1. So let's start working on chapter 8, applications in global world. So what we are discussing today, we are talking about the different type of the application architecture that we have regarding the uh, open database connectivity. We will talk about it. And then we will talk about how we can have access to different type of database, specifically regarding the codes that we have by the SQL. And then we will talk about the different type of distributed databases we'll see, and also the XML, XSL, all the different type of uh, coding that we can use in order to show the SQL code, to use the SQL code outputs. And at the end, we'll talk about the data warehousing. So one of the points that we already know and we should know about the databases, database itself, it's not valuable. When it's valuable, when you use it in the system that we call it as an information system. For example, whatever website that you are using, I don't know, for example, let's say Amazon as a big example. So the database itself is another side of the website, and you can just deal the front end. You can just deal with the software in the Amazon, sometimes in your phone, sometimes in your web browser, in your laptop, iPad, tablet, whatever. So technically, you are not dealing directly with the database. You are dealing with some software, and the software connected to the databases. Okay, so that's how the information system works. So technically, that database, sometimes based on a different organization, based on a different situation, sometimes they are reside in the location that you are working. Sometimes also they are reside on the cloud system, which these days they are most reside on the cloud system, and makes more sense. That, for example, I have an organization, not a very big organization, just a, let's say, medium level, and maybe it's not worth for me to have a database itself in my organization, because we learned last week there are a lot of challenge when you have a database. You should protect it, you should do the backup, you should do everything in order to keep your data safe. But what if you outsource this one and just, for example, give it to some third-party provider like the cloud systems? They are taking care of your database system, you are dealing it through the web, and then you are done. They are taking care of everything, security, everything. So that's also one of the things that we are discussed today. And also one of the points regarding the database, again, it's different even for device to device. When, for example, uh, let's say we are using our phone and we have some data in our phone, the way that it's stored in my phone is different. For example, the way that you are using in the, I don't know, laptop from the organization. So we will talk about those. And then at the end of the session, we are going to talk about the data mining techniques. We mentioned that they are not always using the relational database. Those, for example, like the database we had for the Red Cat. We had the table, we had just uh, information, more text and number information. Sometimes we have, which not sometimes, most of the times, we have non-relational databases. We have to work with the images. We have to work with the number of likes on one video. We have to work with the, I don't know, reactions that some specific content, for example, would get from the audience. So that type of analysis also, they are going to be on non-relational databases, and we are going to see how different type of data mining techniques could go down through these data and get a meaningful information in terms of making some strategical decision based on the high level people. We talked in the, I think, first or second week of the class very shallow, but today we are gonna work on them in more detail and get more understanding about them. So we saw in chapter 1 related to the different type of database architecture. So we had, but let's go through these three these three architecture that we have: the two-tier client-server apps, three-tier and web-based apps, and remote data server architecture. So the first group, as we see here, the two-tier client-server architecture. So technically, it's more for the mid-size level and small type of organization. So the server computer, the database management system are reside in that specific location. They are not in the cloud version. So they are just connected through the LAN, through the connector that we have here. And client computers that we have in the organization, I don't know, it could be computer, it could be laptop, it could be iPad, or whatever cell phone that we have. So all the application program itself, they are reside in the client computers. There is no specific like a server also for the application program. Okay, so they are let's say more secure. The probability to have some attacker in this type of system is lower, so they are more safe. But for sure, the maintaining sometimes expensive for this type of things, and it could be a little challenging if you face some critical issue in your server. So that's the type of way that we call it as a two-tier. But in a three-tier version, we are involving the web version as well. So technically, the client computers, they are just using the user interface. There is no application software in those systems. They are just seeing the user interface in terms of, for example, entering the data. Database is the server also available there in the system. And the application server is between these two, there is an application server, which is a bridge between these two, and they are connected through the web to this specific one. So technically, that application server is not reside in the system. Technically, like the previous one, it's more like the centralized database, but the point is they are not distributed. They are just in one specific location. And for sure, just because of this web version, it adds one more layer of the security to the system. So they are more safe when we are using this type of things. But the this version, which is the more for the huge organization enterprise that we have, specifically when they are dealing with different type of database management system. So in that case, we call it as a remote Windows data server with ODBC, which means Open Database Connectivity. So for example, in this organization, they have one MySQL database management system, one SQL server, and one Oracle version. Okay, hello. So in this version, we can see all the application server reside based on the different driver for these. So this specific method, I don't know what's happening with the. Let me check the connection. One more. Okay. So this type of version, they created originally by Microsoft. So technically, they are making sure that all the database management system, they are integrated seamlessly. So there is no inconsistency between the data within the system through the drivers that we have in terms of make all the output in the same language for the application. So they are really flexible, especially again when you're dealing with the huge organization like a big enterprise company. And the point is, even though there are more newer methods for this type of system, but still the one that Microsoft created still is widely accepted, and people use that type of system. But the issue rise when we have not just the relational database. It counts when we have the non-relational database. When we have, for example, as one of the source of data, pictures, audio, I don't know, graph, whatever we have, or other type of different files that we have. I don't know, VSAM file, I don't know, JSON, all the things that they are not relational. It's a non-relational. For those type of things, they are using the object linking and embedding database, or OLE databases. So in this version, it will also again make sure that all the outputs, even from the relational database management system and also the rest of the non-relational and all the other things, they are again all readable. And just one more time, this chapter, last chapter, this specific PowerPoint itself, it could be just a different course. We are just very touch it in a very shallow way. So for sure, all of these things, even just this specific method, the OLE databases, it's technically a huge concept to understand. We are just going through the definition, okay? So for sure, if you don't have a detailed understanding of this one, it is totally normal. We are just want to know what's happening in this type of databases. Any questions so far? And technically, when you are working in this type of organization, as a, for example, regular employee, maybe you also don't have any idea what's happening behind the scene. These are more, again, related to like the previous session we discussed, for the database administrative people, not just the event data analyst people. Just it's more related to those groups.
I'm begging my done. Grant me access for that. And I got to go through with NSR. I didn't get to go through. Of course, I didn't get pages where.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly, because this type of is, again, as we mentioned last week, should be secured, it should be protected from the some specific access, the level of authorization and authentication that we discussed last week. They're all related to this one. So let me open. So for those of you that just joined us, so we are gonna finish probably chapter 8 today, and next session, which is technically our last session, we are gonna learn how to install MySQL, probably just on Windows machine, and we're gonna create a small database together to finish the class with some SQL code. It's a good ending for our class. So the SQL code that we learned so far for the MySQL. So technically, again, as we mentioned, the database that we have, and for example, let's say the Amazon website that we have. So when you as a customer go and purchase something from this specific website, so technically the inventory level of that specific item should be updated, okay? So in that case, some SQL commands go to the database system, update whatever we have. We know all the syntax for it. I don't know, updating the inventory table, whatever we had. And then again, the updated version, it's going to also show on the Amazon website that we have. So technically, all the SQL, they are also embedded in the software interface as well. We will see about some examples how the SQL code shows in the website design. So in that one, we technically call it as a sequential processing. So we have those SQL code in the website design. So whenever some request sent to the website, so technically all goes through the sequential processing, update everything, and shows in the output. And also there's a one that we call as a processing with the cursor, we will see. So it's nothing big deal, just showing you, show the syntax with the cursor. We'll see the example. But the point is, when we have SQL coding in the specifically for the website design that we have, there is always possibility to have a attack from the hackers. Okay, because those SQL code, they are embedded in your website design. So if they can have access to your website coding, they can replace your legit SQL with the malicious SQL code. And in that case, they're gonna have access to all the information, all the data that they can have, they would like to have. So we will see some of the famous example how they can access, for example, username and password of the website with just one specific lines of code. We will see. But there are for sure some method to protect this type of attacks. Trigger and stored procedure is two of them. We will talk about them. Stored procedures, which means just using some specific SQL code as like a function that they can just accept some specific type of input in order to give the output. So technically, they cannot manipulate this area of the code for the hackers. But the trigger version, they also go through some, let's say, fact checking. So they're going to check something, then apply the code. We'll see the example. It make more sense to you. So right now, for example, this is the PHP is the language for designing, for example, the website. I don't know whether have you heard of the PHP, doesn't matter. So for example, we can see some code here. In the line 8, we have the, for example, select from the product table. So we can see this specific line that we know what does it mean. It's embedded in the code, in the PHP code. And for example, some specific query that we can run, and all the records we can also close. So technically they are connect to the database and close. So this is the syntax for connecting database. This is for the closing the connection in terms of make it secure. Let me show you the rest also. Or for example, in this one, again, this one exactly for some transaction that might happen from the database. So for example, in this one, it's connected to the Redcat database. So all this syntax is just for showing you how this type of things, for example, this one, inserting data through the table, through the product table. So this is the way that the transaction happened in the database. But it gets scary when, again, those type of SQL code could be accessed by the hackers. In this specific example, can you just read these two lines for me and tell me what you understand from these two lines? Mm-hmm. 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 What's gonna be the output of this one? I am Bob. When I log into the website, I put Bob as my username and I put my password. If the password matches with the database, I can log in. Okay, this is the original part. But what happens if we have this specific part in the code? What does it give us as an output? It's gonna give me user ID, yes, and it's going through the one condition. We had A or B. What would happen in the output? You're gonna have the A result plus B result. The A result is my password, which is the one that I want to have. But the point is, the second condition is A equal to A. A always is equal to A. So technically, it's gonna also show me the other password as well, and also other username as well. This is the malicious code that the attack. This is a very famous classic. For sure, this one is not gonna happen anymore. But I just wanted to show you what does it mean when we are saying that the malicious SQL code that they can inject into the original code. Okay, so technically in this one, it's gonna give the password for the Bob, and also all the rest of the passwords that's already in the database. So just by adding that specific line, and just imagine if this code is accessible. For sure it's not, again, but again, it does. When you're talking about the malicious code, injecting those malicious code to the original SQL code, we mean like this. So this one shows how it is important to first make sure to the limited those type of person that have access to the data. The one that we mentioned last week about the authorization, how many people they are authorized to access this type of, for example, SQL. And then the level of authorization also matters. Which part of the database, which part of the SQL code they can have access for this one. So there are some principle and implementation. For sure, never trust user inputs and all the implementation that they can validate all the entries. Or for example, never use dynamic SQL, use parameterized SQL or stored procedure. Again, this type of stored procedures like a specific function that they cannot manipulate or change by attackers, by hackers. You can just, as a user, put some specific input and have the output. So you cannot change this part. So this one is more safe. And also, for example, if you are supposed to have a list in your database, make sure to encrypt it with some specific encryption methodologies. That's the type of, let's say, uh, techniques that they use in order to protect the database. So the triggers and the stored procedures, as I mentioned, there are two techniques in terms of preventing this type of issue. Again, the procedure call, the application program that we have, some, again, stored procedure, some specific predefined SQL code. So you have, it goes through that one. And then since this one is definitely safe, all the codes, all the command is going to the database. So we'll make sure this is okay. But for the trigger firing techniques, so this one happened more when you are trying to inserting, updating, or deleting something from a database. Okay. So in this case, whatever statement that I have as a user, I might be a hacker. It goes through the database, but when it actives, when some specifically event that happened, for example, if you are trying to inserting something to the database, it goes through the database admin, it will check over there, and then it will go back to the database and uh, implement in the database. So it will definitely make sure that some specific changes, again, inserting, deleting, and updating, it just happened when someone that they are technically authorized to accept, they accept this specific uh, changes into the database. So that's a type of different procedure techniques that we have in order to avoid this type of malicious attack for the database. Do you have any experience in your organization regarding, I don't know, hacking or something like that? You guys remember? I don't know. Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, locking procedure that we discussed last week.
That person, that's like,
Was it from the outside of the organization or was it insider? It was internal?
No,
Oh, it wasn't. Okay.
getting the person that manages the data. Mission. That's an act.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, this one, especially this one, is so crazy because again, if they can filter it through the SQL code, it is a little hard to notice fast. Probably they can do something, then you will find out later. That's why this is so important to make sure all the SQL code safe, especially when you're using it in embedded websites. So the database that we have, again, we are most of the time mentioned, okay, we are in a very local business. We have them just in only one branch that we have. They are technically not distributed. They are just located in some specific place, okay? But when we have the distributed system, distributed businesses, it's gonna be a little challenging. So before starting from the first, let's start from the end. So have you heard about the blockchain system? Yes. Do you have any understanding about the blockchain? What does it mean by blockchain system?
Understanding is like it just keeps on solving formulas, right? What is it? It solves problems.
Okay, so the one that you are probably mentioning is related, for example, for the cryptocurrency for mining the Bitcoin, that some quantitative calculation is happening on behind the system. But just one level picture higher, the blockchain system in general, because cryptocurrency technically it works based on the blockchain system. Okay, but what's the blockchain itself? What does it mean by blockchain itself? Yeah, it retains the information, but the main points of the blockchain system, it's not exactly centralized in specifically one system. It's based on the decentralized. It works based on a different system. Okay, so technically it's distributed. Let's imagine in a network there are multiple nodes, multiple systems, and each one of these systems they are considered as a one uh, database, but technically they are exactly similar to each other. So technically, the blockchain, it's a public ledger that all the information recorded in that ledger, and then all the people have access to that ledger. So that's why there is no possibility to uh, manipulate the data, because if you manipulate data on your system, technically it will shows that for the other systems they are looking for, they are showing that, for example, this specific asset is for example related to this specific people. So if you change it, it's gonna show for the whole system. So technically it's more as a distributed word technology, so it can have a lot of application. Cryptocurrency is just only one of them. For example, in the healthcare system, sometimes they also use the blockchain system in terms of storing patient information on the system in order to keep it more secure. Okay, so that's how the blockchain system works. And the most important things about the blockchain system, as I mentioned, everyone can see it, which means it's transparent. That's why in a blockchain system, let's go to the cryptocurrency example. If I purchased something in the cryptocurrency system, everyone knows that I purchased this thing. I, not Hossein Mohit. Some numbers, that's my hash numbers. That, for example, this number is related to some specific people. That's why if you have in a cryptocurrency system, if you have the hash wallets, hash number of some wallet, you can see what are the uh, assets that people have, but you don't know who are they. Okay, the only things that The only times that they will know who you are, again, this is not related to our course, it's when you go through some exchange store, some centralized exchange store, cash out your money. At that time, they will know who you are because you have to be verified yourself. You have to show who you are. Okay. But again, if you go to the decentralized exchange store, they will not know who you are. So that's a little different things, not related to our course. But again, the main point is blockchain, the database system, it's very common and it's very safe. And it's one of the great techniques for this one. But also there are other different strategies for the distribution system. Okay. The first one, data replication, horizontal partitioning, vertical, and the combination of this one. So let's first talk about the data replication. Because again, we are not talking right now just for the local organization. We are talking about, for example, a business that have multiple branches in multiple countries, multiple continents. So technically, they are geographically separated. So you have to make sure that the database, all the data that you are collecting from these businesses, they are consistent. There is no integrity issue and all the things. So one of the methods is data replication, which means for whatever branch you have, whatever location you have one database that exactly replicate the whole databases. So technically, you have multiple databases that shows just one system. For sure, expensive to maintain, and there are a lot of extra job that you need to do, but definitely very, very, very secure. So as a advantage, again, we have it's more accessible. But the point is, one of the issue with this one also is about how these type of databases, the synchronization between these type of databases, it's also another challenging tasks because sometimes takes time to synchronize all of these things, and sometimes it could be issue. And also the increased storage requirements for duplicating data is one of the disadvantage of this type of. But the horizontal version, for example, for this specific customer table, you have one branch in the US, you have one branch in the Europe, one for sure a lot of customers that you need to input in this one for the US based customer, a lot of if input should be from the European based customer. So it goes through the horizontal partitioning. So which means it goes through the each rows, each record. Okay. So technically, some specific rows, it's gonna be based on the, for example, European database. Some rows, it's go through the US database. So when you put the information for the US, you are just gonna work with those rows that are related to you, and also for the Europe, it's gonna be those related to the European. The positive point of this one, the merging the data, it's so easy, and they will just work. They are technically work on a one database, just different type of records. So there is no conflict between these two. They are not gonna impact the US based information, and also vice versa. But that would be a little challenging when you have some customers, for example, that go through the Europe to the US and vice versa. So in that case, they should make sure to not have any duplication records for that specific customer in the European version or in the US version. But another one, which is another technique, but it could be challenging, but it is a technique that they are just dividing the database based on the different fields, based on the different column, different attributes. So technically, it's a vertical version. So we had in a relation in a table, so we had lines of records for the customers, for the information, and also different type of fields, first name, last name, I don't know, information, something like that. So there's also a method that they can just divide the database according to the fields, according to the columns. For example, in this specific part, it could be just related to the, I don't know, inventory people, that part related to the, I don't know, to the sales teams. So they are just dealing with some specific field. One of the reasons for this, because they don't want that some people in some department, in some branch, they don't want to those people just by mistake, let's say by mistake, put some information in the columns that they are not related to that one. They don't want to have this type of conflict between these type of people in the organization or in different branches. Again, these are all we call as a strategy. So which means some organization based on whatever they feel that's the right decision, they would go with one of these methods. And the last one for sure is the combination of these two, which is definitely a challenging task, but again, it's based on the strategies that some organization make, based on the needs that they have. So maybe you would say this is the very idiot method. It's ridiculous to, for example, divide your database based on different column, but sometimes based on their situation, it's a good practice for it. And again, the point is sometimes when we work in this organization, maybe we even don't know this type of methodology that they are using. I am as a user just responsible, for example, to entering my information in this type of part of a database. And maybe I'm not also aware of the rest of the database because I cannot see the rest of the data. I cannot see the rest of the, for example, fields in that specific table. Again, we mentioned that we can have a view of the database, of the relation. In that case, I, as a user, work in something that I can only see, and I have no idea what's happening behind it. What is the reason for that? I would say the first one is to just keep the whole database secure from the unauthorized access. Okay? Last week question. Which one get paid higher? The database admin, they get higher pay. The question you had last week, so those people for sure they will get paid more because you should have a very, very technical skill in order to keep the database safe. You were not in class last week. Where were you?
Things going on.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Even bigger than this class?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Okay, I hope that everything goes well for you.
I was kind of bummed out.
Okay. So just make sure to watch the video.
Yeah, that's weird, man.
Yeah, okay, good. So we have database. We are running some SQL code through the database, sometimes by inserting, updating, deleting, I don't know, asking queries, something. Okay. So the output specifically for the application version, also for example, let's say for the web application version, we need to have an output that we can read and we can understand, okay, as a user. So in that case, the language that we have is the extensible markup language or XML. So technically, they are there to make the output readable. I would say that's the most simple version of defining XML. So they are just there in order to give us the readable output, okay? But for different type of people, for sure, it's going to be different design, okay? So they are having some tags. We will see in the example, I don't know. For example, this tag, which usually they start with the like this. If you work with the HTML, also you can see this type of tag. For example, this is the paragraph one that start here, finish here, and whatever between these two is considered a paragraph one in the HTML version. So that's the same for the XML also. So there is a document type declaration or DTD that we have. For example, it shows this type of data related to which type of the technically defines exactly. And we will see sometimes in order to make it more understandable, they're using the extensible style sheet language transformation. So this one, in order to display this output, they are using this version. Again, we are not here to learn how to code with the XSLT or XML. Technically, this is the output of a database. This is here for us in order to show the database, in order to make a database readable. So for example, this is the sample XML code. You see we have product ID, which is the one, and it's finished here. And product name, which is the 2i premium boat shoes. So it's a product name again. So technically, when it start with this one, let's say XY. Yeah, this is the title. Yeah. So when we have this slash here, it means technically whatever inside here between these two are related to the XY title. Like the product name, we can see the slash here. Again, we are not here to learn. We're just seeing this. So that one considered as a product name. So this is the way that when you go to the website and look for this specific item, it will show you that, for example, the product name is 2i premium boat shoe. But the point is, when you are going to the website, you are not going to simply see this example. You are going to see it in a very designed interface, engaging, different color, different fonts. That's why they use with the extensible style sheet language transformation. So with this one, they are going to design it. For example, if you go to the Amazon, for example, searching for the iPad cover, I don't know, case with the keyboard, that one shows in the first line with some specific font, then some specific information behind it, under it. So technically that one use this model. Or this is also a DTD file that shows all the information for tagging. Or this is for example, let's say the simple version that shows the XML based on the XSL, extensible style sheet. So this is the version that you can see in this specific example. So you're not gonna just see 2i premium boat shoe, just 717 leather, whatever. You're gonna see the table. This is the table that designed by the style sheet version. Okay. So as we just go through this chapter, we can have a better understanding. It's not just about the database design. It matters also how to represent, how to show that database output. That's why we have database team. Some people are, for example, expert in this area, and that's the part that you have those type of uh, people that work on the designing side. What we call them, XUID. Yes. Those people that try to design the database based on the people experience. I forgot the name, sorry. X doesn't matter. So again, some people that they are expert to make sure that we as a user that have a better interaction, better experience. UX designer. Have you heard about the UX designer? Yeah, that one is also one of the good paid job, well paid job. So for example, imagine you are opening, again, I'm just mentioning about the big website. You're opening them Amazon on your phone, how you can have access to the information with just very simple a click of your, just some simple touch on your phone. That's the UX designer job. So they will make sure all this design well in order to show you the final output that comes from database. See, that's how this one works. But yes, technically there are different type of language that SQL code output, it could be embedded into this.
So do you build XML, XSL into like Python code?
No. Technically,
Or HTML?
no, they are technically, it's a they are almost similar to the HTML coding. We for the website designing, we have HTML, we have CSS, Cascade style sheet, and also Java. So each has a different responsibility. It's different from Discord. But HTML is just for giving us the text. For example, this is the header 1, header 2, something like that. Then CSS style sheet, Cascade style sheet, it gives us the option to increase the font size, increase the font type, change the font type, adding colors, all the things. And the Java for the website design, it can give us the ability to do behavior. For example, if you press on this button, you are going to go to the next page. That's the Java things that you need to do. XML, which is the technically the output of the database system. XSLT is for designing those in the output, in the final output that you're going to see. But most of the time, they are the responsibility of different people in the organization. So technically, it's like a chain. Some people in the database, they create food for these people work on that food in order to prepare it for the final presentation on the website, for example, or whatever application software we have. But if you remember, we mentioned about the data, different type of database. Let's say points that we mentioned. Sometimes it's not just about the transaction data that's happened quickly. Sometimes we have some data that we would like to do some extra analysis on it in order to make some strategic decision for the higher level people. We had the OLATP and OLAP. So online analytic processing, those things that we had. So we talked about the data warehouse very quick in the second week. Now let's discuss more through the data warehouse. So in the organization, sometimes, not sometimes, always you have internal data that the system generating. Sometimes you would need to have also external data as well. For example, you're selling item A and your rival, they are selling item B. And there are some extra organization, third-party organization that they have this information about the item B. And you have to purchase this information in order to do analysis to compare with your product, okay? So that's considered as a external data as well. So when you purchase this type of data and also your internal data that you have, you put all of this data in the data warehouse. Data warehouse, technically, they are there for us in order to separate them into the different subcategories. We call those categories as a data mart. Okay, so data mart, it's going to be categorized based on the different department, different needs. For example, huge amount of data is available. I, as a person that work in the sale department, I only care about the information related to the sale. I don't care about the, for example, information, let's say, regarding the measurements of the design of the product. I don't care. I just want to know how much we sold in the last year, how much we sold in that couple of specific holiday or something like that. Okay, So in that case, we are creating the data marts according to the needs that we have. But the point is, this data warehouse, they have this type of features. First, subject-oriented, which means, as I mentioned, it could be exactly related to different type of needs in our organization. They are, they should be integrated. So technically, at the end of the day, all of them could be integrated together in order to have the database. They are not volatile, they are non-volatile, which means it's not like the transaction processing TPMS that we had. So they are not happening very fast. Technically, it's a little different. And then time variance. So technically, but from the different period of time, we can have analysis. Some for the last year, some for this year, the quarter of this year, the first quarter, second quarter, something like that. So we had this picture before in this first weeks of class. So as I mentioned, we have the source data, internal, sometimes could be external as well. And then through this method, ETL, extract, transform, load. This is also a very challenging task. How to categorize the data, how to make them separate in order to first make sure you are not going to have any duplication, inconsistency, data integrity issue. And then after that, we are going to have different type of data mart. Okay, the data mart, for example, one for the sales department, one for the inventory department. We are just making an example based on the Red Cat shoes that we have. But the point is, this also data mart configuration is also, it could have a different type of schema. One of them is the star schema, we'll talk. One of them is the snowflake schema. We will see what does it mean when we are talking about the star or, for example, snowflake. Any questions so far for understanding of this data warehousing? Data warehousing itself, it's a one separate course in a master level in some school. Yeah, we had it in the previous institution that I was taking my PhD. So we had the data warehouse, and maybe we have it also here. I don't know. I'm not sure about the master's degree that we have. So that's again very huge course, very huge skill. So when you're talking about the starting schema, we are talking about the first one fact table and then different type of dimension table. One fact table here is for the sale. In the sale, we have different features, different type of business need, product ID, period, period code, customer ID, size code, quantity, sale, whatever. So each can be also categorized to a different table. For example, this table for the product itself, that table for the period, size, customer. So we can have the main point, the main reason for doing all of these extra things is for having the data in a version, in the best version that we can run analysis out of it. If I am an analyst in the system, I would like to work with some data that technically has some points for me. I don't like to work with some code that I have no idea what are they. Okay, so that's the part. If I have some specific, very clean and organized data, for sure, all the analysis that I'm gonna do on that one is gonna be for sure have a better output for the higher level people that they would like to make the, let's say, billions of dollars of decision just according to my analysis, my team analysis. The other one that we have is the snowflake schema. So technically it's similar to this one, which again, the dimension table, they also have another subcategorized table. Again, more detail, like this is the fact table, one dimension table, and each of these also they can have more detailed output. So technically, again, as much as I have a more clear and organized data, for sure my analysis is gonna be better. And the last one, data cubes, which is technically a newer thing, but it's still the Snowflake and the Star is more usable. So technically it's Star schema, but you're aggregating tables. So that's the only also we have in our book just as a 2 lines, so it's not a big deal. But these two are most important. But one of the things that we should know when we are dealing the data warehouse. So as we mentioned, we have data warehouse in general, and we have different type of subcategories that we call as data mart. Okay, we have two approach for it. One from the up to down, one from bottom to up. So the bottom to up, technically, they start from the bottom side, like the name, which means they go first through the categorization. For example, information should be for the sale, this information should be for the product group, production group, this information should be, for example, for the shipment groups, whatever, logistic group, and then combining all in order to have the data mart. One of the positive points, it's easier for sure to work on a smaller schema and then combine them. But the point is, the combination of all of these, there might be an integrity issue and like a duplication issue when we work in this way. But the other side, for sure, it's gonna be from the upper side. Again, like they have the whole data. So technically, gathering all data at the same time require more time, but it's recording the less time, but the categorization to different groups, it's gonna be take more time from this one, and it's all go through the ETL, ETL, extract, transfer, load. So that's the whole process that they would do through one of these two approach. Okay. Any questions so far? We're almost done. That's exactly one of the huge responsibility of a data scientist. We talked about the difference between data analyst and data scientist in class. Am I right? Something I remember something we mentioned. The data analyst people, they will go through the data and find what's happening, find trends. Data analyst, data scientist people, they will go one step further and try to predict what's going to happen according to these trends that we just find. So that's why data scientist people, they are very more involved with the statistical techniques. You should be technically statistician first, and then you're going to be data scientist. And data scientists for sure have a better paid job in comparison with data analyst. Okay. So there are, in terms of the analytical version that I mentioned, again, we have a lot of data. So in that case, you are going to do analysis for those type of online analytical processing. In the SQL, there are multiple techniques. I put this slide here just to give you some information, some words that I would like you at least to hear it once in this class. Again, we are not gonna, each of these itself, it's a different courses. So we have two type of analytical techniques, unsupervised and supervised. Have you ever heard about this? We have huge amount of data sets, okay? When we have no idea about that data sets, okay, technically we have to do some exploratory analysis or descriptive analysis in terms of, for example, clustering those data, categorizing those data. For that one, we have multiple techniques. One of them is the most famous one, is the k-means clustering. So there's a lot of software that they will do this type of analysis for you. Sometimes we have the anomaly detection. This one is more usable, especially for the security things. When there are some not normal behavior in your database. For example, you have some users data and you would find, for example, some anomaly on some specific users in your websites, in your data sets. So they can just detect some anomaly, some not normal things based on that behavior. Again, it's a very huge thing to know. Supervised version, they have data. There are some categorization for the data. Now they're gonna do some classification based on different type of techniques, neural networks, decision tree, regression analysis, linear logistic. For example, these are the part of my PhD courses that I had for the let's say advanced level of the linear and also the logistic regression. So these are all the things that people use for the data analytics. So when you're supposed to be in a data analyst role, technically you should be master in each of these techniques. And the last one that we are going to talk in this class is about the big data. We are living in an area that second by second we are generating data. Right now we are creating data by recording this meeting, uploading to the cloud, and then I'm gonna go there, download it, edit it for you, put it again on the website. So again, another data. So it's happening. That's why we have this concept of big data. So big data technically relies on 3 V's: volume, velocity, variety. Volume, the amount of data is crazy. Velocity, the speed of creating data is crazy. Variety, the different type of data is crazy. The book added, and also some sources, they added 2 more: veracity and the value. How data are valuable for the organization and how you can trust those type of data. Okay, that's why there are a lot of platforms created for us to how to deal with this type of big data. One of the most famous ones created by Google, which again, if you just know how to work with this one, you would definitely have a 6-figure job. The Hadoop is one of the software that's created by Google in terms of dealing with the big data. So that's a very great skill that you would, if you are interested in that area, you can just learn. Again, it's not just Hadoop, Spark. There are a lot of different things that you can go and find it if you're interested. And the last one, which we call it as a NoSQL databases, there are multiple. For example, one of them is key value databases. This is the way that it works. It's going through the different buckets, put some keys on the left side you can see, and for example, put some information that's similar to each other for each key. So technically similar to the relational database that we have, a table, a field, some information. This one just first make sure to index it by different key numbers and then categorize based on the similar. For example, last name, first name, the gender, those that are similar to each other, they are categorizing this. Again, these are the most simple example that you can see in terms of understanding. Or the document databases, it's go one step further and try to collect those information in different type of documents. For example, this ID, this ID, this ID, each related for one car. I don't know, this is a VIN number for this car, model, year, color. So they are just trying to make different package out of the data. Or the white column database, in terms of to having simple like something like this, the relational table layout that we had, the key, first name, last name, phone. So they're gonna again do it on the other side. Put the key in a one column. They're gonna exactly work based on the different column. First name on the first and last name on some column and phone and the email on some column, on some column, exactly. So technically, they are just dividing the relational table into the different versions. And the last one, graph databases, they are using a graph theory based on the different connections between the nodes of a database. So that's also, again, another word. If you were interested, you can go and find about the graph databases later. So that's all about the databases that we should know. Yes.
I kind of get the other one, but like, why the Y column?
Again, just in this specific example, we are just trying to make it simple. Again, based on the different needs, I'm not exactly sure why it should be used, to be honest with you. Just wanted to show you how they are using. Again, when you're talking the big data, which means maybe we are not maybe we are dealing with millions, billions of trillions of data, maybe in the hundreds of fields or something. So if I need to deal with these things, maybe that would be great if I, for example, instead of dealing with 100 fields, what if I can deal, for example, with 25 fields and put 4 that are most similar to each other in one, put the next 4 in one, you see? So technically, they are all here in terms of make the database more understandable, more, and that's the one of the things that is a responsibility of those data scientists people, those database people. That's their decision. Maybe if you go to that organization with that specific skill, you would say all of these are crazy. I'm going that way. I'm gonna change it in that. If you can justify, okay, the categorization I'm going to do with this method works better, why not? You see? So it's different based on different people also perception. That's why just these are the techniques. How you can implement these techniques is another whole different world, you know? It's different things. We're just here to just know what does it mean by these things when we are talking the white column databases, which means we are categorizing different columns based on our perception. My perception is different from your perception. My team's perception is different from your team's perception. Any question?
Would you say that Hadoop was again? Like Innovator?
Hadoop is a software that created by Google. So technically it's here for dealing with the big data. Power BI. Power BI is more like a visualization tool in terms of like the Tableau, the Power BI, as far as I know about this software. For sure, they are working with the output of some databases, specifically Power BI, because it's based on the Microsoft. So it's gonna like creating dashboard according to the database that you have. And again, just by knowing SQL, Excel, Power BI, you can be a data analyst. Easy. Just these 3 techniques. Technically, just 3 words, but each, if you want to be master, for sure you need to have a lot of practice for it.
What would you use for like predictive analytics?
Software.
Yeah, what software?
First of all, you should be a statistician to know all the, Bayesian stuff, all the different type of techniques. But you can just do all of them in R, our programming language. I do R. You can do all of them in Python. It just, let's say, if you want to, for example, do the logistic regression, you can do in whatever program language. You can do it in SPSS, you can do it in SAS. It depends on you, which one you are more comfortable. And also, sometimes it not depends on you. It depends on the place that you're working. They are just they're working on that specific software, so it's 3 language. It depends on your and your company or organization preference to use which one. But if you are starting your career, I definitely recommend this type. Right now, people are scared. If you don't have the question, let me stop the recording. Okay, so welcome. We are going to install MySQL on the Mac version. At the same time, we'll make sure to install on the Windows version as well. And as I mentioned, we have to first install MySQL Server, and then also the benchmark software as a graphical user interface software in order to work with the MySQL. So for this purpose, make sure to open MySQL website, mysql.com. And please do it at the same time with me in order to make sure that you're in the right day. Okay, then you need to go to the download. Okay. And then go to the MySQL community GUI downloads, end of the page. Then let's go to the MySQL community server, and then we have to install the benchmark tool as well. Okay, but first let's start with the installing, sorry, Workbench. I just made mistake, benchmark, Workbench. So MySQL community server, click on it. So for the Windows user, you will see the Windows here, right? Right, okay.
Yeah.
So for the Mac, we have the Mac, just the last version. And if your Mac, that's the difference for the Mac and Windows. For the Windows is Windows. For the Mac, if your Mac is based on the Intel based, you have to choose the x86 64-bit. If you are using the M version, those Apple Silicon chip, you have to go with the ARM. And if you don't know what is your laptop, you should check it from the about. So make sure to check it from the about this Mac. And if it's written M, go with the ARM. If it's just said Intel, something like that, you should go with the second option, which is the x86. Okay? Or you have the Windows. So I have the M chip MacBook, so I would go with this one. Let's download this one. And in the second page, just no thanks, just start my download. Okay? And then let's wait until the download is done. And also at the same time, let's go back and download the MySQL Workbench. So again, select operating system for the Windows, Microsoft Windows, Mac, and just install again if you have the M chip devices, or otherwise x86. For the Windows, how many options you have?
This one being the archive.
So no, just go with the MSI installer. Yeah, good. For the Windows version, just choose the, let me just choose the MSI installer. Okay. Also for the previous one, just make sure to choose the, let me also download this one. No thanks. For the MySQL community server, for the Windows, also just download the MSI installer, not the zip. Okay. Okay, good. Let's wait for finishing the download. Again, when you download just the MySQL server, you can just do all the SQL stuff for the Mac in the terminal window, for the Windows in the command tab, the CMD. Okay, but we don't want to go that way. we would like to have a better, easier option. The easier option is using the benchmark tool. Okay. So workbench. Sorry, I'm just saying benchmark. The workbench. So now we are almost done. Okay. Now let me open it. So first, let's start installing the first one, which is the MySQL server. Double click on it. For the Windows, it's easier. So it's just gonna show. Let me complete. Let me. Okay, that's for the Mac version. Just put the hello, and then continue, agree, selecting the system, continue, install, put the password. Can I see the Windows version? Okay, just yes. You're also doing the Windows. Okay, next. And just leave the type and networking to the same, the port 3306. You put also next, please. Next. Just leave everything as it is. Okay, and now this is the part for the both Windows and version. You have to select the root password. The root password is the password you should remember. Whenever you want to connect to the SQL server, you have to use this password. So just make sure to have a password that you definitely remember. Okay, for the Mac version, it's mentioned that it should be at least 8 characters or whatever. So just put the password that you would definitely remember. For the Windows version, there is also another option to assign some people in the MySQL user account. In that way, for example, you can, if you select add user, so you can see, you can change the role, DB admin, I don't know, DB designer, DB manager. We're not going to go that way. So you can select different people, different rule, different type of authorization, all the things. Just cancel that one. We don't want to have that one right now. But just make sure to have the root password. And then finish. And then you have to put your password one more time. And then after done, it's gonna ask me access file on your download folder. Yes. And then it's gonna ask me to move to trash. Okay. Now we just downloaded the MySQL, installed the MySQL server. Happened for you on the Windows version? Okay, yes, next. And make sure to click the create this tool. Yeah. For the Windows version, it's also give you an option. Okay, put the next. To install 2 sample database. Finish. Yeah, just finish. Okay, so what's up? Oh, yeah. That's an installer file, so you don't need to have it anymore. Okay. So, we are waiting for the, okay. Yeah, it's waiting. It doesn't ask anything else?
Yeah.
Is it just this one? No, it's gonna, did you press next? No. It went well for you, am I right? Oh yeah, just make sure to select these two. This one give you two sample example. Okay. Execute, yes. Did you press execute? Okay. That's for the Windows version. Now for the Windows version and the Mac version, you have the MySQL server. Okay. When you have the MySQL server, again, in the Windows, if you click on the CMD, open it, you can work on it. It's a little tricky. You have to address something, then we are not going to go that way again. It's especially for the Mac version, you have to open the terminal and add some comments for that one. You have to first create some CRDMZ file. Let's assume that this is just for the very professional, so we are not going that way. We're going to use the easier way, which is using the graphical user interface. At this moment, you have the server in your machine. Now let's go to, did you all download the second one, the Workbench event for the Windows? Now let's install the Windows version, the Workbench for the Windows, and also at the same time for the Mac version. For the Windows, for the Mac is easy, just drag and drop. For the Windows, that's how you should transfer your machine to the Mac. So just complete. Yes. Yes. This one is also easy. Next, yes. Complete next. Yes. And just wait. Finish. Okay. You have it. You have it. So what is this one? Oh, you are in the still and the previous one,
Just won't load.
but it's successfully installed on your machine.
Yeah, it says that.
Yeah, just wait for it. Now we also, did you do on your side? Okay, cool. So now we are in that step to have the MySQL Workbench. When we click on it, open, we can see that the SQL server that we install is here. Double click on this one, asking for the root password, that the one that we just created. But put password. Okay. Now we have the MySQL Workbench. Okay. So for the Windows version, since you also installed two database example that it asked you, so there is for you is on the downside, the administration and the schemas. For you, you should have more databases. Am I right? Schema. You see, Sakila and the Vault, the one that you just installed. Yeah, click on this one. Click on this one, and put the root password. Did you do that? You have it? Okay, cool. You also have it? You have you are in this Windows? The same? Okay, cool. So, okay. So from the schema tab, if you click on the schema, you can see these are the two extra. So click on, for example, the Vault. This is not for the Windows. This is not for the Mac, just Windows. Click on it. And now you can see the table. Click on the tables. So if you, for example, go to the CD and the right version, you see, go to the CD and go to the right. This one, yeah. Now you can see the table, and also the syntax is select aspects from the word CD. Okay. Yeah. Go to this one. To the this one. Yes. Right. Yes. So you have a table, but now we are going to have we're going to create a database together. Now we have the MySQL workbench installed in our machine. We are already connected to the MySQL server. So if you go to the administration server status, you can see this one already connected to the MySQL server. Okay, so now we have it. And a schema, again, for the Mac version, we don't have extra database, but for the Windows, we installed at the time of installation the software. So for this one, if we just put show databases and make sure to always have semicolon on this one. To the version that we had on the MyEducator, it will automatically put semicolon for us. But for this one, you need to have it. And if you want to run it, you can also select and just this sign here, the execute. So we can see here, it says you have 4 schema or 4 table or database in your system. But let's first, for example, I don't know, let's create database. I will put my name, Hossein, semicolon. So if I run this one and select, okay, and choose, now we can see this one created. So if I run the show database again, there is a Hossein database here. And we can just easily also drop database Hossein, semicolon, or here in the schema, right click, refresh all. Now Hossein is here. We can also right click here and also drop the schema from here as well, but we are just doing with the syntax. Now, if I again put the show database, there is no Hossein anymore in this. So we just create a database. And in this version, there is a rule. When you are using when you are using a specific database, you have to just use one command, use the database name. So in that case, you are connecting to that specific database that you would like to work with. Okay, we will see. I think this one doesn't work. Yes, let's see. Oh, this is not for this. In the CMD version and terminal version, if you put /h, it gives you some help. I don't know, for example, for use u/, but this is for this terminal version on Mac and CMD on the Windows. Command window on the Windows tab. Now let's create a database together. This is the example that I have here. So first, let's show the database. These are the database I have. We are gonna create a movie rental database, okay? In this movie rental database, we have one table for the customer. We have one table for the movie's name, and we have one table for the rental, okay? So technically, if I want to draw the ERD or entity relationship diagram, so we have one for the customer, we have one for the movie, and we have one, what we named it here, we named it rentals. Okay, so technically, every customer can rent nothing or many movies, and every movies should be just rented, for example, one and only. But if you have multiple version of that movie, we can rent also to multiple customers. And the same for the movies. That's the relationship we have. Okay, so you start to type on your side this syntax created. First of all, I have just this one, show database. Okay, these are the one. And then create a database, name it movie rental. So we just created and we can see the status. It's green, it's created. And then use movie rental. Here, it's not necessary because we are in one window that we just created movie rental, okay? But let's have use movie rental. Technically, you are just telling software that I am using the movie rental. But if you close these windows after creating everything, then you would like to come back and ask some query from this specific database. If you open the query page and start to write, for example, select asterisk from the customers table, it gives you the 0 result because you didn't mention from which database. That's the part that you should first start with the use. Whatever database you want to have, it's going to connect to that database, then starting to write the SQL code that you would like that. So let's first have it on your side, and I want you to create it. I know it maybe takes time, but it is important. Create on your side. Technically, we are just creating our first database after this semester. So it gives you the better understanding to do the job from the 0, 100, the whole process. So far, we learned about all the SQL codes. What should we do? But now let's create the data. And you can just do for whatever system that you would like to have in the future. So let's first the first table, create table, customers table. Okay. So the customer ID, I would like to have it as an integer, the primary key, and I put the auto increment in order to add the ID for the customer ID. Name variable character to 100, email variable character to 100, the join date of that customer based on the date. Close the parentheses, semicolon. The second table, movies table. The movie ID, integer, primary key is the movie ID, and also auto increment for the movie ID. Title, variable character, genre, variable character, release year, integer, 2021, whatever. And then the create table, let's also write the table attributes here. The first table is customer ID, then name, then email, then join date. This is the customer. Then we have, what's the second table? Movies table. The movie ID, the title, the genre, and the release year. This is the attributes for this one. And the last one, which is the rental. We have rental ID as a primary key, rental ID, but also we have customer ID and the movie ID as a foreign key in this table, because we have to address the rental happened between which customers and which movies, right? So foreign key references the customer from customer ID, foreign key movie ID references movies from the movie ID. Sorry, movie ID from the movies table, and also customer ID from the customers table. And customer ID, movie ID, rental date, and return date. So first rental ID, customer ID, rental, movie ID, rental date, and return date. So technically, we just created 3 tables in our database. And if you have questions, stop me, please.
I never. They just like, I eventually like closed it out, or put it because The application not. Never wrote.
Still, you're inside the MySQL, huh?
Yeah, this one. Did all
This back, yeah.
But my Mac is out of date. I know that.
Mm. Let me just check something.
Bro. It's out of date. I know I don't have.
So, did you first install the x86 version, not the ARM version, am I
Yeah, yeah.
right?
Okay. Right here.
Yeah, x86.
Yeah, that's the one.
Okay, what is your macOS version? 10. Okay, that's the point.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, because go to this one. It's macOS 15
Okay.
is the base one.
Mhm.
So maybe what are these? Both 15,
15.
huh? Okay. What about we change it to the older version? Still
Still
okay.
15.
Okay. So that's the point. So
I can't get it.
if you have to first update your macOS and then install it. But for sure, I'm just gonna record everything so you can have it all later on, guys. Yes, that's also another issue.
I've deleted like everything because I ran into that problem. I can't even open up.
We can work on it after the class because I know something for fixing that issue. Yeah. So let's select these three tables and run it. Now we just created three tables. If I refresh this part, now we have the movie rental, and then we have to also insert the data to the table. So these are the next step for us. Now we create the database. Let's insert data to the database. That's the second step. And at the end of the day, I will make sure to upload this file on the E12. So then you can also access to this file in order to run. So we know that how to insert data to the table. Insert into the customers, name, email, join date. What are the values? These names, Alice Johnson, the email address, the date, something, we just made it. Also insert into the movies table. What are the movies name? Inception, Godfather, Toy Story, Avengers, Endgame. What are the genres? Science fiction, crime, animation, action. Release year 2010, 1970 to 1995, 2019. Okay, that's also another thing. And about the rental, customer ID 1, rented, movie ID 1, rental date, return date. And the last two, they rented, but they have never returned it yet. So let's also install this. So now refresh. And so, refresh. Technically, we should have tables here, but yeah, because I ran it twice. That's why we got the error. Sometimes it happens. So let me drop database, and what is it? Movie rental. Now let's do it again. We first created, we just created Okay, now we can see it here. Now, let's run. Customer ID, what's the error? No database selected. Okay. Oh. Yeah, I didn't use it and I oh. Okay, now. Here you go. Now we have the tables here. So now insert the data. Refresh. So if I go to the customers and here we can see this one. If I click on this one, now I can see the data insert. And we can see when I click in this one, automatically the syntax would be here. Select asterisk from movie rental dot customers. When it says movie rental dot customers, which is customers tab from movie rental database. So technically, if you don't want to use the use, also you can just use the database name first, dot whatever table that you would like to address. Okay. So now we can just first close this one. So right now we have the table. So I think if, for example, we said show tables and these are the tables that we have in this database. And you can just again drop the table, all the things. So we just installed the MySQL on the Mac version. So for you just joined us, you can just watch the video lecture later in order to get what we have. Okay, now so did you just understood the whole process? So technically that's how the system works. People start to do interviewing with the organization part in terms of understand how data go through the organization. They come with the DFD data flow diagram, and then after that one, they will create the ERD entry relationship diagram, or the one that we also did with the class diagram with the UML method. And then according to those table, now let's assume you are the SQL expert. So you just go to the table, find what are the attributes you have, create a database company XYZ, then start to create a table, then inserting data to the table. Now you have your small database that you would like to have, okay? So now it's the time for you to maintain the database. Maybe delete some records from the database, adding something like that, adding table, adding data, yes. Yeah.
This is like a database that's run.
No, it's gonna connect to the MySQL server.
They're hosting it.
Yes, that's why we have to use the root password in terms of connecting to the server.
So how security?
Technically, it looks like you are using the iCloud. How iCloud is secure.
Basically,
Apple is secure. MySQL is secure. This for sure, there is a probably backup version on your machine, but technically it's stored on their server. Okay? I assume it is free since we are using it. Probably for the, to be honest, I have no idea. Maybe for the enterprise use, I'm not sure. Probably. Otherwise, it would be free for some database. And for example, Apple is not going to do that for their company. The very critical information just stored in database. But at least, good, hopefully, and I mean, good for us that for the educational purpose, we can have access to use it for free. Okay. Now let's run some. Let's close this window. Okay, we close this window, and then I am a person that I would like to ask some question from my database. Okay, so let's start the first question. List all customers for me. So for listing all customers, I first would like to work with the movie rental. Use movie rental, and then I want to see the customer's name. So select asterisk from which table? Customers table. So run, I will have access to the customer. Let's say find all movies that released after 2000. So I would like to check something from the movies table where the release date is after 2000, for example. So we can have another one. Select asterisk from the movies table where the release date is after 2000. So these are the movies: Inception and Avenger Endgame. And then which customers have rented movies. So technically, we are talking about the customers table and also rental table. So we have to connect these two together through the which tab? Customer ID tab. Customer ID and the rental. So customer ID is the path between these two tables. So in this case, select, let's say, distinct from the customer table. I would like to have the name from the customer, join rental table, or on which path? Customer ID. So I can just see these 3%, they have rented movie. And which movies are currently rented but not yet returned. So I have to work with the title and the rental date. I want these two because it says what movies are currently rented and have not yet returned. From movies table, joining rental table, on which path? Movies ID, where the return date is null. Very, very simple SQL code that you all definitely experiment with. So we can see these two movies in this date, the Godfather and Avenger Endgame, these two already rented. And if you want, we can also mention, for example, from the rental table, the customer ID, then we can see which customer rented the movies, and then haven't returned yet that. Or for example, the last one. How many movies has each customers returned? How many movies, which means count function. We would like to count how many movies each customer rented. So in that one, selecting name from the customer and then count rental ID as a number of rental. We have aggregate function. There was a rule. When we have aggregate function, if there is any other attribute next to the aggregate function, we should use group by. So group by the name, and we are using the left join in terms of see the customers that rented and also have not returned the database. So in that case, I can see the Alice Johnson 2 times rented. Right? So this is it. This is the whole about how to install this one on your machine, create whatever database, insert data to the tables, create table, insert it to the tables, and then running whatever SQL code you want. Let me stop recording.